Kiss me, kiss me, infect me with your venom, fill me with your poison. You find something to eat in the freezer. Oh boy, you're an alien. You're such so foreign. Oh, that's quite. My voice did that. Supernatural, extraterrestrial. I don't think that's even in the right key, is it? There'll be something in there. I'm not going to do it anymore because I'm probably going to end up giving myself vocal nodules. Hello, everybody. It is me, Katy Perry. I don't know about this setup that I've got going here. I feel a bit cramped in. So recently it was obviously LGBT History Month. So me and some of my colleagues at work, we did like a LGBT History Month sort of little webinar type of thing for the other people in the company that sort of wanted to come and like show their support and like allyship and stuff. I did the 1950s, so we did kind of like quite recent sort of time, you know, in sort of the last 100 years. I realised that, I feel like this is kind of the case for a lot of people. Like, I don't know loads of LGBT history. I really have to sort of like search it up and stuff and like figure out like different parts of it, and often like I get stuff from like Wikipedia and things, and you know, I just wanted to, so basically it made me feel like, oh, like maybe I should actually like look more into this and kind of like understand more about LGBT history. So that's what we're doing today. Today's a class, but it's gonna be a fun class. I'm also doing my makeup as well at the same time, because as we know, I like to have something to do with my hands. I don't like to just sort of sit here and stare at the camera and chat. Even though I do love to chat, I never like tell you what products I'm using and stuff. I out fucking barely area. So, bearing with me, just 2 momentos. Por favor. I'm Spanish now. But the person who I like wanted to talk about first, so he came up in like in my research, because my decade was kind of like the year that he died, unfortunately. So today's person is Alan Turing. I feel like we all kind of know of Alan Turing. When I mentioned that in the meeting, like webinar thing that we did, I was like, I don't really know a great deal about this guy. Like, I obviously know what he did for the UK when it came to like the war and things, and I know kind of that unfortunately he was very heavily mistreated after that because of his sexual orientation. But that's kind of as much as I know. I have been watching a lot of like videos on YouTube, and I've been listening to podcasts and things. So I have got like a bit of information that's just sort of like stored up in my little head space. But obviously, you know, I am going to read from Wikipedia as well. I've got my laptop down here. If it sounds like we're about to take off, it's because she's a bit of an old girl now, is this laptop. And you know, sometimes she gets warm and she's got to blow out the air. And I know exactly how that feels because I too am an old girl. This foundation smells weird. It smells a bit like oranges, actually. Yeah, it's got like an odd smell, very tangy smell. So his full name was Alan Matheson Turing, and he was an OBE and FRS, I think it's called, which I had to double check what that was because I've never actually heard of it. So it's Fellowship of the Royal Society, apparently. It says it's for substantial contribution to the improvement of natural knowledge, including mathematics, engineering science, and medical science. So, I mean, we all know kind of what Alan Turing did, although, like, I didn't really know the ins and outs of it, which I feel like did anybody, because what he did was, like, so, like, clever. He's kind of like the father of the modern computer, really. It's very, very difficult to sort of summarise what he actually did, but we'll kind of get there. I mean, I'm going to have to give you it in layman's terms because I don't fully understand it either. He was born to Julius Matheson Turing and his mother, who was Ethel Sarah Turing, maybe. So his dad worked in India quite a lot. I believe that he was in the army, like the British Army over there. And from what I've like sort of listened to in other videos, I'm fairly sure that he spent some of his childhood in India. Although on the Wikipedia page right now, I can't actually see any sort of mention of that, so I'm not sure if that's actually true. So I will have to double check that. So we all know that like Alan Turing was an absolute genius. And it was kind of noticed from like his early sort of schooling. So one of his teachers, they said that she'd had clever boys and hard-working boys, but Alan is a genius. So it was obviously quite clear from like a young age that, you know, he had a very natural aptitude for kind of schoolwork and certain elements of school as well. Obviously like mathematics and I guess like science as well, because they often sort of go hand in hand, don't they? Which is weird actually, because I were real good at maths when I were at school, but I were real bad at science, really bad at it. Probably because I was like wildly in love with my science teacher. I was like, just give me a chance please, but that'd have been weird if he actually had it done, so it's a good thing that he didn't. So we're just gonna sort of like skip ahead a little bit here. So basically when he was kind of going into high school, I think like they call it like preparatory school back in those days. I'm not really sure of like the difference, but I know that he basically went to like a boarding school, and whilst he was there he met a guy called Christopher Markham, who is often sort of described as the first love of Alan Turing. So they bonded over their sort of love of mathematics and like science and things, and yeah, like that was kind of the basis of their friendship to begin with. It seems like Alan had like an unrequited love for his friend, because his friend, from what I've sort of read anyway, he appears to have been heterosexual. I've read a thing where it says that basically Alan said every time that he sort of tried to show his feelings, he like didn't sort of reciprocate it. So that would suggest to me that like he was straight, but he obviously really liked Alan as a friend. And they obviously like had this bond over their sort of love of maths and science and things. And yeah, I guess like he just didn't want to sort of not have that in his life. Very sadly, however, Christopher Markham died of bovine tuberculosis at quite a young age. So I think that they were still at school at the time that he died. And this sort of, you know, it massively upset old Alan over here. You know, he were understandably like quite heartbroken. I mean, like I feel like when sort of your best mate dies anyway, like that would be really shit, but then also like, you know, if you sort of love them like in a romantic way as well, like that would be a bit of a double whammy, wouldn't it really? And it said that he went down a bit of a rabbit hole of kind of trying to find out if people sort of their psyche and stuff was left behind when they did die. So he kind of went down that sort of area, and he became quite interested in it. I mean, from what I've sort of listened to and read and stuff, it doesn't really like linger too much upon that. So I'm not sure how long that sort of lasted for. But I mean, it's understandable really, isn't it? Especially like, you know, if you maybe are a bit more of a spiritual person, or even if you're not, I guess, like when you do lose somebody, you want a way to sort of for them to still be there. So I understand that completely. Like it is real sad. But yeah, that's not kind of, there's not like much mention of it past this that I've sort of noticed. So I mean, don't, you know, sort of start thinking, oh, he's part of Illuminati or whatever, and you know, like I don't think it's that sort of tea really. I think it's just literally like his mate died and he was upset, which is understandable. This is quite interesting as well actually. So I never really knew this piece of information, like it's not really mentioned loads, but apparently Turing's relationship with Christopher Markham's mother sort of continued for a long time after Christopher's death. So that's nice that they sort of like had each other to sort of reminisce, I guess, about like the passing of their loved one really. So that's lovely. I don't know what I'm doing with these eyebrows today. This is the first time that I've attempted to do like the full brow with this pen, and I don't think it's something I'm going to be doing a lot going forward. I'm just going to read this directly sort of from the page now. So after Sherborne, which was the school that he went to where he met Christopher Markham, Alan went to King's College. So whilst he was there, he was awarded with a first class honours in mathematics, and in 1935 at the age of 22 he was elected a fellow of King's College on the strength of a dissertation in which he proved a version of the central limit theorem. I don't know what that is. I'm gonna have a quick look and I'll see like if I can sort of summarise it in like terms that I would personally understand. So it sounds like it's basically seems like it's based around probability to me. I'm not 100% sure on that. If you want to go and do some research on it, then by all means feel free to and come back and tell me it, but just, make it simple for me. In 1936, Alan published a paper that was called On Computer Numbers with an Application to the, and don't shout at me for my pronunciation here, so it says Einscheidengun's problem. I don't know if that's the right way to say that. I mean, you would think that I'd have come a bit more prepared than I actually have, but I didn't. I thought like this was going to be dead easy, and it's actually, difficult, lemon difficult. In sort of writing this paper, Turing, from what I can sort of understand anyway, he made like the first computer. So it says here, so Turing proved that his universal computing machine would be capable of performing any conceivable mathematical computation if it were representable as an algorithm. We all know kind of this part about Turing's life. So during the Second World War, he worked at a place called Bletchley Park. Apparently, so I never really knew this because I've never watched the film, but The Imitation Game is based on Alan Turing's life. And basically, whilst he was there, he was a leading participant in sort of breaking the German ciphers. So, they were sending messages that were encrypted, and Turing really sort of led the way and helped to decipher those sort of encrypted messages that they were sending. I mean, whenever I think of encrypted messages, I just always think of, what's it called when you send in a WhatsApp, that's encrypted, isn't it? So I guess whatever sort of formula they were using to encrypt those messages, he helped to decipher that. We all know that he did that now, but at the time it was super kind of secret, nobody could know who had done it and things, and basically they were rewarded financially, so don't think, oh well, they didn't get a lot off of it. They were given a lot of money and things, but it is very clear that they didn't necessarily get the accolade that they necessarily deserved. How did he manage to break this code, I hear you all clamouring to ask? Well, he created a machine that was called, I think it was just called the Bombay. I'm going to read this directly again because otherwise I'll just get it wrong. So it says, within weeks of arriving at Bletchley Park, Turing had specified an electromechanical machine called the Bombay, which could break Enigma, which was the coding that the German army was using at the time, more effectively than the Polish bomber Cryptologicizna. Probably said that wrong. So from which its name was derived. The Bombay, with an enhancement that was suggested by mathematician Gordon Welshman, became one of the primary tools and the major automated one used to attack Enigma enciphered messages. Whilst the war was happening, the German army were preventing supplies and things from coming through to England, so there was a lot of warfare in that way, because I presume that we couldn't sort of be captured and occupied because we're kind of like an island when we've not got any direct routes. So I guess because we've got that and we have a navy, maybe it was quite difficult to get into the land. I mean, you can tell that I didn't listen super loads in history, but I mean that kind of makes sense to me from a from a practical point of view, understanding. So what the German army did then was they prevented any shipments from coming across. So people were kind of we know about the rationing and things anyway during the war, but that was kind of one of the main reasons why that was happening, because obviously we were kind of getting starved out at the time. The machine that Turing made, it meant that we were able to kind of know when that was happening, and from what I've read as well, it seems that we then started to send messages. Basically, we were able to sort of deceive them a little bit because we understood more about how they were communicating with one another. It's said that without sort of Turing's machines and things that he sort of really helped to pioneer, the war would have probably gone on for at least another 2 years. So I should also mention this actually, because like I find this quite interesting. So Alan Turing, whilst he worked, so it was called Hut 8, which was at Bletchley Park, he actually proposed to one of his friends who was called Joan Clark. And I think like quite quickly, I mean, I'm not really sure like why she sort of accepted it, because it is kind of mentioned quite heavily that she like knew about his orientation. So yeah, I know like back then it was a different time, so maybe, you know, the idea of kind of, I think like marriage was a lot more important back then, because, you know, without that, like women unfortunately didn't have any financial rights and things. So maybe like it was kind of a bit of a thing of, well, you know, like we're friends, so I'll just marry him so I can, you know, like be okay kind of thing. Very quickly he came out to her, which then it said that it like concerned her, but she just sort of like carried on the relationship still. In the end, Alan broke off the relationship. Well, he broke off the engagement, I guess you can say, because they did continue to be friends like well after that, which I think is really, really lovely, because I mean, in like a time such as that, it would seem like she was quite understanding of like Alan's sexuality and things, and I think that's real sweet, because I guess like some people would have really just, you know, like put him up on the higher sort of thing, or whatever the term is, for his orientation, whereas it seems like she was just kind of like, yeah, okay, fair enough, like as long as you're sort of happy. So after the war was over, Turing went to live in Manchester, from what I understand, where he just like lived his life as a gay man. It is said that he wasn't really hiding his homosexuality, but I guess like kind of hiding your homosexuality then is probably very different to like hiding it now, and kind of like living openly and out of the closet is very different then to what it is now. So I'm sure like, you know, he wasn't probably doing this, but he was kind of living a happy life as like an out gay man. Like he was surrounded by people with intelligence that could sort of be more accepting of his lifestyle, I guess. During that time, he met a guy called Alan Murray, who was a 19-year-old unemployed man, it says. From what I understand, so they had like a bit of a strange sort of relationship going on. Arnold would basically like tell Alan, oh, you know, I'm in like financial difficulty, I need money. And then Alan would offer Arnold, this is really hard because they both like have very similar names. He would offer him money, and then Arnold would say no, but then Arnold would then rob Alan, is what I kind of understand from like what I've listened to. So like this kind of went on for a while, and I don't know, like it seems like it was sort of suiting them both, I guess. I mean, Turing was not like a poor man, do you know what I mean? Like he wasn't hard up for money, so I guess maybe he just thought, well, you know, it's cool, I'm sort of offering it anyway, so he's taking it, but he's not sort of necessarily like taking me up on the offer, do you know what I mean? So I guess like that works for them, whatever. You know, it's a different time again, like I keep saying, so maybe that was just kind of like, you know, he thought, well, this is like as good as it can maybe get. I don't know. I don't really know like why he sort of accepted that. Eventually what happened was, so Alan's house was broken into, and he was just kind of like, this is the last straw. And he went to the police and he told them that it was Arnold Murray that had done it. Arnold Murray turns up on Alan's doorstep and he's like, you know, it wasn't me, it was a guy who they also know, I just forget what he's called and I can't like kind of see it readily available on the page. By this point, Alan has like obviously gone to the police and told them what has happened. Now, I don't really like fully understand what he said to the police, but I guess it incriminated him. So in terms of like being a homosexual. So the police came and then turned up at Alan's door and said, you're under arrest. So he'd been burgled, the person who had burgled him got away with it, and then he got arrested for kind of, I guess just like openly admitting to being in a homosexual relationship. I don't really know the full ins and outs of it. I must say, I'm looking particularly gorgeous in this mirror. I don't look great in there though. So he was charged with gross indecency under Section 11 of the Criminal Law Amendment Act of 1885, which was, conversely enough, the same thing that Oscar Wilde was arrested for. The sentence was basically either, I think it was 12 years in prison from what I recall. I can't see it again on there. I'm not doing a very good job on this, but at least I'm telling you some things. So yeah, that was kind of the sentence for him, or he could accept chemical castration. Now, the chemical castration that they gave him was to, I think it was estrogen that they gave him. So they gave him like a hormone that would essentially, they believed that it would curb his sort of libido and things. So, you know, it would prevent him from wanting to have sex with anybody, let alone men. 2 ticks before I poke my eye out doing this, so I'll be a second. Uno momento, por favor. Yeah, so I guess maybe that seemed like the better option to him, because it meant that he could still continue on with his work and kind of, you know, like his inquisitive mind could still be stimulated, where I guess like in prison, that's probably not really something that you can like continue on with doing, is it? Also, like, it's not as if, because he had signed the documents to say that like he wouldn't tell anybody about his involvement in cracking the Enigma code, it's not as if he could be like, oh, well, don't worry, like, I mean, not that, I don't know, like, you shouldn't necessarily get, like, better treatment because of who you are or whatever, but at the same time, it's like, because we now live in this society and we know that, like, being a homosexual isn't, like, a gross indecency act, like, it's not that, like, it's not something that's wrong. We kind of can look back on that with hindsight, can't we? But I guess, I don't know, like maybe, like if you are living in that time and you have these beliefs that obviously people did have, then maybe like if you then found out that somebody had used like their status to swing a decision in court, then maybe you'd be a bit fuming, I guess. But I don't know, it's very hard to look at something with like the eyes of like somebody who was essentially bigoted, and it seems like he had a sense of humour that was like very, very dry, like maybe like a bit of a dark sense of humour, I guess you might say. He basically said like, I think I might be turning hetero, and then he says, I can't say that I'm altogether very happy about it, or something along those kind of lines, which I just thought, like, to me that sounds like a bit of a joke, really. You know, like, it's sort of like taking Mickey's like, oh yeah, like they've done all this shit to me, but, you know, it might be turning me hetero, but I can't say I'm right happy about it. If you make a joke out of like misfortune, then sometimes that can be like a good coping mechanism, can't it? Some of the side effects of the hormone that they had given him in order to cure him of his homosexuality were, so it gave you like breast tissue and things, it could sort of like make your voice higher, it can like make your like testicles sort of shrink up a little bit, and one of the main things that it can do is it can cause like a depression. And yeah, it would seem that like that kind of was something that happened for Turing, unfortunately. On the 7th of June, his housekeeper let herself into the house to kind of do the cleaning and things, and unfortunately she found Turing dead. It is believed, and it was kind of like, I think people argued quite a lot about this for a while, that he took his own life by biting into an apple that he'd laced with cyanide. Now, a lot of people were saying, oh, you know, he'd been doing like some experiments that involved cyanide gas. So a lot of people were saying, you know, maybe he'd like inhaled too much of that gas and that had killed him and things, and like, I don't really know. It was ruled that he had committed suicide at the time, and since that point, it has also been kind of discovered that the amount of cyanide that was found in his stomach was like far more than it could have possibly been from the experiments that he was doing. So it does seem very much so like, you know, he did sort of kill himself. There are other sort of theories that he was sort of like knocked off by the government, but I mean, it seems likely that it would have been the suicide, because kind of knowing what we know about how that hormone sort of like was affecting people and things, it seems quite likely, at least to me. I mean, I could be completely wrong, maybe I'm just like listening to the man and like, you know, maybe it was like a lot more kind of like nefarious than that, but that's what it seems like to me. I don't know. But interestingly enough, like his friends and like his mum even said that they had spoken to him recently, and that he didn't seem kind of depressed or anything. So like oftentimes when people do decide to take their own life, it is kind of like a bit of a phenomena that there's like an upswing in their mood because, you know, they kind of can see like a way out of how they're feeling or whatever. I don't know if that was the case. Again, we'll never really truly know, will we? He was posthumously pardoned in 2013. There was also a law that was created called Turing's Law, I think it's called, which posthumously sort of like pardoned all people who had been given convictions for sexual offences to do with like homosexuality and things, kind of historically. So that is a good thing, that is kind of obviously, you know, associated with Turing's name. So, you know, again, it's not ideal like that he had such a shit time in life, but at least it kind of, you know, something happened that was like for the good in the end, even if he wasn't sort of around to see it. You know, he did kind of have that phase where he was thinking about people's sort of brain like living on and, you know, like living in the ether and things. So, you know, maybe he is like knocking about even still in the ether out there, you know, like a cool Alan Turing ghost, and maybe he kind of like knows that like his story and things and his achievements have helped to make people more tolerant of homosexual people, which is not like ideal. Like toleration isn't what you want, is it? You just want to be like accepted and for it to be completely normal. But at least like, you know, his existence has kind of made that slightly better for all of us, really. I'm getting well carried away with this gold highlighter. Don't know who I think I am when I put it on. I mean, I could really do with dusting this bit of powder off my nose, couldn't I? But I didn't. Right, so I'm gonna quickly put on a little sexy number, and I might even put in my hair straight, my hair extensions, sorry. But my hair is looking super greasy at the top, so I might come back in a wig, but we'll soon find out. I almost forgot to put on my setting spray. This is my favourite bit. You just get like a nice like scent of coconut and it's quite delicious. Cool, so I'm back and I must tell you, like, I am feeling quite beautiful with this hair and this sort of like nude, like Kardashian look that I'm serving to you. I am wearing the same leotard as what I wore last week, and I'll not apologise for it. I just don't have the money to be buying shit at the moment. So I really hope that you all liked today's video. So it is something like a little bit different. It's kind of something that I want to like carry on doing, really, just because I think like we do often like forget what's happened in history, and if we do forget history, then, you know how the saying goes, like we are bound to make the same mistakes again. So, you know, it's important that we talk about these things. It's also very, very important that as queer people and LGBTQIA plus people, we remember sort of like the people who came before us and like the struggles that they had, and we also sort of remember that without their struggles we wouldn't be where we are today. We can sort of like see these patterns happening throughout history and hopefully prevent them from happening again, and try our very best as well, you know, to get more rights for like the people in our community who don't necessarily have those rights at the moment. Unfortunately, that is still happening in the UK, in America, like everywhere in the world. It's kind of happening, really. So like nowhere's like right there at the moment, are they? Like nowhere's perfect, so it's important for us to like keep learning and keep like progressing, and I think hopefully like by knowing our history and things that can happen. So yeah, again, I'm very, very sorry if any of the information was incorrect. If it is, feel free to like correct me down below in the comments and stuff. That would be fab, because like I always want to learn more anyway, so if I have got stuff wrong, like I'd rather know that I've got the stuff wrong and then like kind of be able to talk about it like with knowledge. So yeah, just let me know if I have, and I'm very, very sorry if I have as well. But I think I got sort of like the main bullet points, and that's the main thing. So as always, if you did enjoy this video, please like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends and your family. If you have people that want to like know more about allyship and stuff, I do think history is a really good place to sort of start with that. And as usual, my social media will be on at the very end. It's just Dominoe official on everything, so please follow me on TikTok and Instagram. And until next time, I shall see you all very soon. Bye. Shimmy, shimmy, shimmy for Alan Turing.